Hello. Today, I'm going to talk to you about cultural differences. After 8 years of living here in France, there's one category of cultural differences that I haven't truly adapted to. And that is the category that I have labeled cultural differences of the mind. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Patricia Brooks. I moved to France in January of 2018 on a career break. And now I have a new career as a coach who helps people who are ready to start the next chapters of their lives living and thriving in a foreign country. I help them to build the confidence and courage to make that move abroad, but also if they've already made the move abroad and they're feeling a little bit lost, I help them with that. And on my channel, I talk about my life here in France, making a move abroad, and how to dig down deep and find that confidence and courage so that you can live the kind of life you know you were truly meant to. And today I'm going to be talking about adjusting to cultural differences that you have to think about. I'm going to break this down into three categories. The first category has to do with dates and times. Now, here in France, the week starts on a Monday, not Sunday. And so calendars, if you look at them here, the first day in that first column is a Monday, and the last day in that last column is a Sunday. And you might say, "Oh yeah, not a big deal. I can adjust to that." Well, the thing is that for me at least, I have gotten adjusted to looking at the columns and thinking, "Oh, if something is in the third column, then that is a Tuesday," and not look at the date column, not look at what is written in that column. And that has been a problem one or two times when I have scheduled something online with somebody's calendar scheduler. And I just say, "Oh, I want to do that Tuesday because it's the third, it's in that third column. I'm assuming it's a Tuesday." But instead of being a Tuesday, it's a Wednesday. And I have almost missed appointments because of that. So, yeah, it's simple and not so simple. The other thing with dates is that here in France, they write the date as day slash month slash year. So if you see something that is written 12 slash 5 slash 2025, and you are looking from an American perspective, you could easily mistake that for being December 5th, 2025. When in reality, here in France, that is May 12th, 2025. Big difference. And it's something that is getting easier and easier for me to do. If I'm asked to write my date of birth, it's more automatic now. And it's easier not to be confused when the day is a day that is beyond 1 through 12 because there are not 13 months. So if there's a 13 or if there's a 31 in that first column, it's easy to say, "Oh yeah, that's right. This is European, the European way of writing dates." The other thing in this category has to do with times. We are on the 24-hour time clock here for the most part. This has been easier for me to get used to because when I worked at Denny's, that was my first job. We had to clock in and our schedules were written in military time. And so the trick that they gave me to use to quickly convert that time into regular time was for me to simply subtract a 2 or a 12 from the number. So if the number were 1600 hours, all I would simply do was subtract 12 from that, and I would say, "Oh, it is 4 p.m." Okay, I understand that. So that was something easier for me to adjust to, but still, it can be confusing. You can make mistakes. if you are looking at closing times, for example, of a store, and you see something that says 1900 hour, it might be easy for you to see the nine and think, oh, they close at 9 o'clock, especially if you're coming from an American perspective where stores close later than they do here in France. However, 1900 hour is actually 7 p.m. And so if you're looking at that and expecting to make it to the store here in France, um, you're going to miss the store. You're going to miss the store. All right. So that's dates and times. The second category has to do with weights and measures. Now, kilometers is something that it has taken me a little while to get a sense of. Um, I feel like a child, getting a sense of what is a mile, right? It's not something that you just really know. It's a distance, but until you have driven a mile or walked a mile, you don't really have that sense of it. And now I have a sense of what 10 kilometers is, what 30 kilometers is, what 70 kilometers is. Before, when I saw that 70, I thought, oh, okay, that's quite a distance. Well, it's still a little bit of a distance, but it's not the distance that I had in my mind when my mind immediately went to miles. I've gotten a better sense of that. There is a way that you can figure this out, a multiplier you can use. It's 0.62 something, 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 something. I obviously have not committed it to memory, and I don't use that as a tool, but it's something that you could use as a tool. Speaking about driving, I have not committed to memory how many liters there are in a gallon. When I go to the gas station and fill up, it's in liters. And that number on the little ticker thing goes up and up and up and up. So all I know is it's in liters and that gas is expensive here. And when it comes to the temperature, everything is in Celsius here. And I have gotten kind of a sense of what's hot and what's cold. And I do have my barometer of 32 degrees Celsius equals 0, right? So I've got that committed. And I know that if the weather forecast says it's going to be 30 or above, it's going to be hot, right? It's not going to be comfortable. And if it's, 7 or 8 degrees, it's going to be chilly or cold. I do have a little trick for this, and my trick is for the Celsius, to convert it quickly, is I multiply the degrees Celsius by 2 and then add 32. And that's a roundabout estimate, to kind of get into the ballpark. It's not 100%, but I will know what kind of coat to put on or whether I need a coat, right? So that is my little trick with that. So, and sometimes, one of the things I've done to try to really adopt that understanding of Celsius and what that feels like is I've changed my phone to the Celsius setting, but sometimes it mysteriously switches back to Fahrenheit. Now, in your travels or when you've lived abroad, or if you're currently living abroad, have you struggled with these sorts of cultural differences? Let me know in the comments. The final section that I want to talk to you about has to do with money and numbers and handwriting. Let's start with handwriting. With numbers as well as with some letters, understanding French handwriting can be challenging, as it can be challenging for French people to understand my American handwriting. Numbers are written slightly different here. I remember going to register for something and having to put my date of birth. And I remembered to put the day, then the month, then the year. That wasn't the problem. The problem was in deciphering what I had written in terms of numbers. The woman asked me, is that a 1 or is that a 7? What number is that? Is that a 4? And I realized that, yeah, that cultural difference can go both ways. when a French person is faced with reading an American's handwriting. The second thing I want to talk about is with currency. Now, in the United States, everything's in dollars, and if you have something that is $1,500, you're going to put the dollar sign in front of the figure. Dollar sign 15000. In Europe, you're going to put, or in France, you're going to put the euro sign at the end, 1,000. If it's in euros, you're going to put 1,500 euros. But in addition to that, the punctuation that you would use is very different. In the United States, that very figure would be 1,500. And then if you're going to extend it out to the decimal point 00. However, in France, what you're going to see is 1, and then typically you're going to see a space, but sometimes you might see a decimal point, and then 500, and then you're going to see a comma, 00. So that was something that took a little getting used to for me, and writing checks was something that I had to pay close attention to. I remember when I first started writing checks, I would refer to a YouTube video to make sure I was doing it right. All right. So those are some cultural differences of the mind that have been slower for me to adjust to, but I am getting better with that. Can you relate to this? What cultural differences do you still struggle with when you travel or when you've lived abroad? Let me know in the comments. Now, as I said, I started out my journey here on a career break. I have since created my own business here in France, and I help people who are not really sure what their next moves are. I help them to create that plan and work on that plan. I help people who really want to make this move abroad, but fear and doubt have really stopped you in your tracks. So if you're interested in learning how you can work with me, you can schedule a complimentary discovery call with me, and we can talk about what it is you want to work through and if our working together really makes sense. So I'm going to put a link to my calendar in the description of this video, underneath this video, if you are watching on a computer or on your phone. If you're watching on a TV, I can't tell you where to find it, but the link is thecouragecatalyst.com/future expat. All right. So that is all I have to share with you today. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, share it with friends, subscribe, and I will see you again next time. Bye for now.